gang. Green above.
Here we go. History in the making. Green, green, green.
We're down to one race to go in the regular season, and boy, is there a lot to be decided. Hi, this is Brett McMillan. Listen to the O'Reilly Auto Parts Pit Reporters. With me this week, Jim Utter from Motorsport.com and Bruce Barton from Speed Sport.
It's the O'Reilly Auto Parts Pit Reporters on the Performance Racing Network. Presented by O'Reilly Auto Parts, your professional parts people. Now, here's your host, Brett McMillan.
Well, welcome to the show. Glad to have Jim and Bruce here. Man, we got a lot to talk about this week. Let's start talking about what lies ahead, Jim, with the final race of the regular season. First of all, it's hard to believe we're at the final race of the regular season already.
I know.
But here,
11 Cup weekends remaining.
That's right. Here we are. But there is a lot going on. You've got a battle for this regular season championship. You got the last playoff spot on the line. And, I mean, there's a lot that's going to keep an eye on this weekend.
Oh, absolutely. And to me, there's always a lot of interest about like who's going to get the final spot in the playoffs, and rightfully so. But also a lot of times, if it's somebody who squeaks in at the last minute, it becomes a big moment then. But then a lot of times they don't end up being someone who factors into the actual championship later on. But in this case, being at Daytona, you just never know. But I actually think there's a little bit more drama this year in terms of the regular season championship. And mostly because it means so much more for Denny Hamlin. Because he hasn't won, but yet he's been so good that he's kept himself in the hunt for the regular season championship, which gives you 15 bonus points, playoff points, if you win it, which would be invaluable for him because he has no playoff points from wins, and I think it would keep him right in the thick of the title hunt. I think the last standings I saw said if the regular season ended now, he would be eighth because he would be seeded eighth because he was beat now. But he can vastly improve that position if he were to actually somehow clinch the regular season title, either by winning the race at Daytona or finishing far enough ahead of Kyle Larson.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of drama there because it's 5 extra points between first and second, Bruce, when you look at that. And we were talking before the show, at the back end of this whole thing, the first point of drama is you got 2 RCR cars on the face of it battling for the last spot, but both of them can be knocked out if you have somebody below 16th pop up and win.
And we're going to a restrictor plate track where we've seen random winners. The winner of this year's Daytona 500, I would think, would fall into that random category. I don't think anybody picked Michael McDowell to be the winner of the Daytona 500. Maybe that's the genius in moving the cutoff race to Daytona, is because it's going to be so random. But then if you're a driver that's worked really hard all regular season and try to be in a position to make the playoffs, to go to a race where the outcome can be so random, it's almost a little unfair to them. But I think if it adds some more excitement to what has normally been, I mean, let's face it, the cutoff races of the regular season have generally been fairly mundane. I can't think of a lot that have had that much drama to it. Getting back to the Denny Hamlin situation, in today's day and age of NASCAR, how unusual is it to have the regular season champion who has yet to win a race this year? The last couple of years, we've seen between Kevin Harvick and Kyle Busch and Martin Truex, teams that had gone out there and won like 8, 7, 6 races. Now we have a guy who could be a regular season champion without winning a race. That's got to say something for how valuable consistency still is in a NASCAR season.
It's interesting, Jim, when we went to this new point system and the new playoff system, NASCAR wanted to make wins more valuable and yet still reward consistency. And this is certainly spotlighting that they've accomplished both.
Oh, absolutely. And the other thing about Denny Hamlin is just because he hasn't won, if he were to win the regular season, you can't just toss him out the window after that and say, oh, he hasn't won, he's probably not going to in the last 10. The way he's run, he's been in the thick of many races where he could have come out with the victory. He's run good enough to where you can't just dismiss him and say, just because you won the regular season doesn't mean just that you went 26 races without a win doesn't mean he's not going to win any of the last 10. He's got some very good tracks in the playoffs.
He was one Chase Briscoe nudge from being a winner at the Brickyard. I think in a lot of ways.
Should have already had that one.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, great story, A.J. Allmendinger winning at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but that was one that really threw a lot of us when that happened. It was like, oh, my God, I can't believe that just happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and the thing is, and then, of course, his trek up pit road to talk to Mr. Briscoe about the nudge. And, but the interesting thing that came out of that was, the initial reaction was, why was Chase still racing him hard when he knew he was going to be penalized?
Thank you.
But then there was the other side that says, well, if Denny knew he was going to be Briscoe was going to be penalized, why was Denny still racing him hard
Also
and
true.
didn't let him go? Yeah. So there you go.
But I mean, like with the Chase Briscoe thing, my thing has always been like, I'm sorry, I don't care who you are. You cut a significant part of the course, and you really need to wait for someone to tell you that you did something wrong. I mean, come on.
The last time I
Make
checked,
them make the call, man.
shortcuts.
Well, I mean, I understand that philosophy too, and they did. But then, like the community. Really, we have to wait until he gets told by someone. So, I mean, there needs to be some way in which the penalty is immediately communicated.
He would have had a black flag when he got back to the start-finish line. Problem is they hadn't gotten back there
Right.
yet.
And he did all his damage beforehand.
Yeah.
And in NASCAR, if one guy gets away with the shortcut, they're all going to take the
Absolutely. But that's the thing. When you look at this, this is what the playoff system was designed to do. And this is what the end of the regular season was designed to do. To bring excitement, Bruce, in situations like this, hey, we're about to start football season. And this is the time of the year that NASCAR kind of used to get lost, especially when you get to the end of the regular or the end of the season, and a guy's clinching the championship with 3 races to go. Well, you know what? This is one. We're going to have 4 more of these elimination situations to decide a champion.
And they're all going to come at dramatic tracks, too, especially with the Final Four cutoff in a Martinsville. We've seen how that's worked out the last couple of years, but that adds the drama to the competition, because without the drama, the competition really isn't that interesting. And what we've seen is at least NASCAR is not afraid to tweak things and take big swings where it feels is necessary. Sometimes they take too many big swings. I think that having the cutoff race at Daytona this year is going to work out better than when they tried it at Bristol, or when they even had it at a great racetrack, one that we all like in terms of racing, at Richmond.
Jim, how much does it amp up the intrigue factor in that there is only one spot left?
Quite a bit, I think, because, and that combined with the fact that it's Daytona, if we went in with one spot remaining, say, at an intermediate track, I mean, right now, I would say, you would probably think, it's pretty much a guarantee we're going to have a repeat winner win this race, and someone will get in on points as the final playoff driver. But being that it's at, a super speedway like Daytona or Talladega, where virtually anyone has a chance to win, particularly if you can stay out of the various melees that take place throughout the race, it opens the door to virtually anyone. As Bruce pointed out, who would have seen Michael McDowell coming at the Daytona 500? The same exact thing can happen Saturday night. And that, in and of itself, makes it far more interesting because, and I think this is why a lot of fans like super speedway racing, is because they know that their driver still has a chance. I mean, let's face it, Justin Haley won a super speedway race. Anything can happen.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, Michael McDowell running up front at Daytona is not a surprise. Winning the race was a surprise.
And, of course, he should send a big thank you to Team Penske for helping him get to victory lane back in February. Here's a question.
Fellow Ford drivers.
That's on the same thank you list that Kyle Busch was sending to Ryan Blaney this past weekend.
Yeah.
Hey, here's something to think about. So let's look at the guys who are always good at restrictor plate races. What's their strategy now that they're locked into the chase? Do they the playoffs, do they hang back and keep their nose clean throughout the race, knowing there's really no reward for their risk other than winning a race? Or do they get up there and take it as one more chance to win a race at Daytona?
Well, we know one guy who's not on Richard Childress Racing's Christmas card list, and that's Eric Almirola. So we're going to talk about what this week's been like at RCR. Almirola did him no favors when we come back.
O'Reilly. When you need auto parts, O'ReillyAuto.com is just a few clicks away. We offer convenient options for you to get your parts quickly. Order online and pick up for free at your local O'Reilly Auto Parts store. We'll even bring it out curbside. Or you can have your parts delivered right to your door with free shipping on most orders over $35. Visit O'ReillyAuto.com.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
You wash the outside, clean the inside, and make sure maintenance is up to date. Pamper your car's engine and fuel system by adding Z-Max Micro Lubricant. Using the fluids as a carrier to reach internal parts, Z-Max literally soaks into metal, dispersing harmful carbon buildup. This helps improve performance, extend engine life, and reduce emissions. Get Z-Max today at zmax.com or your local auto parts store.
Want to hear one of our past shows? Visit GoPRN.com. This is PRN, the Performance Racing Network.
Hey, I'm Corley Joy for Speedway Children's Charities. The mission for Speedway Children's Charities has remained true since its founding almost 40 years ago: to care for children in educational, financial, social, and medical needs in order to help them lead happy and productive lives. So many children have benefited from our group in the past, but we need your help now more than ever. Our local chapters are more than just fundraisers. They are partners in change, working with a broad range of people and organizations to help children in their communities. Want to make a real difference in a child's life? Start by heading to speedwaycharities.org today. Make a donation, volunteer, or attend one of the dozen fundraising events we host at our chapters. There's so much we can do when we all join together, so let's start today. Again, visit speedwaycharities.org to learn more. I thank you in advance for your help.
Download our free mobile app to listen to the show and more great PRN content on the go. Now, back to the O'Reilly Auto Parts Pit Reporters.
Hey, welcome back, along with Bruce Martin from Speed Sport and Jim Utter from Motorsport.com. Brett McMillan, glad to have you with us. We talked about it going into the break. You know, going into New Hampshire, the RCR drivers, Austin Dillon and Tyler Reddick, Bruce, felt like they're in pretty good shape looking at the playoffs. Then all of a sudden, Eric Almirola comes from 27th place in the points, picks up a win, steals a playoff spot, and now, for the last 3 weeks, or the last 3 races, Tyler Reddick and Austin Dillon have been dueling for what, at this point, is the last spot in the playoffs. What do you think it's like this week at RCR?
Gotta wonder what those engineering debriefs are like between those two, how much those drivers are not sharing with each other. Well, that's kind of the beauty of this madness that they've come up with, in that a win gets you in. And then a lot of times when a guy wins a race that's not even on the radar, nothing against Eric Almirola, but a lot of people didn't expect him to be in victory lane that day. He gets in. Now all of a sudden, here's 2 teammates could have possibly gotten in together. Now they have to fight each other to get into the playoffs. I imagine that's going to make for a little bit of an interesting time up there when the drivers and engineers all get together and talk before the race about what they're going to do.
I know that Rick Hendrick's famous for getting the milk and cookies out, but I don't know that Richard Childress would get out some of the RCR Vineyard product this week and having the boys sit down, but maybe after the race at Daytona, Jim.
Yeah, because, I mean, the other dynamic you have going on here is that you have 2 guys who are fighting for basically one spot from the same team going to a track where typically you have to work together as not only teammates to do anything on the track, but with the other Chevrolet drivers, because we know how manufacturer influence has come about in the Daytona and Talladega races. And So at some point, unless they align themselves with somebody else, they're going to help each other to just get through the race. And then I guess at the end, then fight it out amongst themselves.
Well, and the thing is, what they can't afford, either of them can't afford, Bruce, is to have Matt DiBenedetto pop up and win the race all of a sudden, because that would knock them both out.
Yeah, at that point, it's game over no matter what happens. But the whole teammate concept I find is very interesting, because on the final lap, that teammate becomes public enemy number one to you, because you want to beat him as much as you want to beat Kevin Harvick or Kyle Busch. So that throws an interesting dynamic into it, but you got to answer to the team owner. If you don't take care of your teammate in those situations, then the team owner is going to wonder, why didn't you help out? So it really puts some of these drivers almost in a somewhat of a thankless position when there's so much on the line, such as we're going to see Saturday night.
Well, since since Tyler Reddick's got an edge already, what is he, got a 25-point edge, Jim?
Yeah.
Maybe he'll just help Austin get a second.
I think, if you're RCR right now, your goal is now to get a car in, okay? But they must, it's got to really be a punch in the gut for them from this past weekend, because they obviously had a chance with Austin Dillon, at least. He was a legitimate contender for racing for that win. And he basically got knocked out by Brad Keselowski, and it would have helped their overall cause, if he had been a player and possibly could have picked up the win. On the other hand, too, we have the Hendrick RCR engine collaboration. They have been phenomenal at super speedways. So again, they should also be in the mix this week. But as I said earlier, to get to the end, you're probably going to have to play along with your teammate and the other Chevrolets, unless you find some other strategy. But that's what makes the whole thing really interesting, is Bruce talking about meetings at the shop. I don't even know what you say, just play nice until 3 to go, or and can you do that? It's so unpredictable.
Well, and keep in mind, Bruce, there are other Chevrolets like Ross Chastain that would love to get the win.
Right.
Like, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. would love to get the win. Both those guys get a win, and you're in. And, hey, Chastain especially has been running pretty well lately.
And I think that there's a team owner that would like to get into the playoffs, because his NASCAR career is going to be over at the last race of the year. Chip Ganassi.
He's got the one car in, but he's waiting to get the other one.
He's got the one car, you get another one, you get the other one in there, and now all of a sudden, he's going out in a blaze of glory. But there's a lot that, it's like Jim said, these team meetings have got to really be interesting. But a Chastain, perfect example of a guy who could be considered a random winner at Daytona, because he's run very well there. In the Daytona 500 and other races, he's done a pretty good job at Daytona. So it could be a race where a guy like a Ross Chastain ends up racing his way in, and then we can throw all those other notes away.
And spike a watermelon on the start-finish line. That would be fun.
Watermelon for everybody.
There you go. The crowd would like that on a Saturday night at Daytona, especially this time of year. It's still a little warm.
No kidding.
All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about what happened at Michigan. Pretty good race at Michigan. A lot of people say it's one of the best races they've ever seen at Michigan. In the meantime, don't forget about our Pit Reporters poll that we have each week at GoPRN.com. And this week's question is Daytona still a good place to finish the regular season? What do you think? Yes or no? Last week we asked you, do you go back to the oval or continue to run the road course at Indy? And people said, yes, let's continue to run the road course. 54% said run the road course. 46% said do not run the road course. Go back to the oval. All right, we'll talk about Michigan when we come back.
If your loved one has passed away due to COVID-19, pay close attention to this message. You could be entitled to a death benefit of over $300,000. The U.S. government has set up a fund to pay families relief if they've lost a loved one due to COVID-19. We know this is a hard time for you, and this fund has been set up by the federal government to help ease your pain. The compensation includes a death benefit and lost wages benefit. Time is limited, so we urge you to make a free phone call right now. There's no cost to you for this claim. All legal fees are only covered once you receive your money. So if you've lost a loved one due to COVID-19, call the legal helpline right now to find out if you qualify for a cash award. Here's our number. 800-429-7126. 800-429-7126. 800-429-7126. That's 800-429-7126. Paid for by the IPG Law Group.
We've got more of the O'Reilly Auto Parts Pit Reporters in a moment. This is PRN, the Performance Racing Network.
Hi, I'm PRN's Alexis Erickson. Want to listen to PRN anywhere you go? By downloading the PRN mobile app, you can listen to live race broadcasts and have on-demand access to your favorite shows like Fast Talk, Pit Reporters, Garage Pass, and PRN's At the Track. Download today to make sure you don't miss any of the action. Get the latest racing information at your fingertips with the PRN mobile app, available on Apple App Store and Google Play. Find more information at GoPRN.com.
Hey, this is Doug Rice at PRN. Make Monday night your appointment listening right here on Fast Talk.
First and foremost, he's just, I don't want to get crazy and say like a once-in-a-generation type talent, but he's all that.
I really expected more out of him and his team yesterday. Unfortunately, we didn't talk about or hear them very much because they didn't really do very much.
When manufacturers get behind their teams, we see manufacturers flex their muscle.
That's Fast Talk right here on PRN.
Get your short track racing fix with PRN's At the Track. Visit GoPRN.com. Now, more of the O'Reilly Auto Parts Pit Reporters.
You know, O'Reilly Auto Parts specializes in keeping your car on the road. Like, for instance, if you don't know how much life's left in your battery, O'Reilly Auto Parts can help. Their professional parts people will test your battery for free, and if it does need to be replaced, they'll help you find just the right one to fit your car. Superstart batteries are built to handle even the toughest conditions. So stop by your local O'Reilly Auto Parts store today or visit O'ReillyAuto.com. Welcome back to the O'Reilly Auto Parts Pit Reporters, along with Jim Utter from Motorsport.com, Bruce Martin from Speed Sport, Brett McMillan. Glad to have you with us. You know, Jim, the last couple of weeks before we went to Michigan, we were asking the question that, you know, we know after Nashville, the NASCAR went to Hendrick and said, you know, we're not thrilled with the way work you've been doing here on the headlight area with the Bondo and stuff like that. You're not necessarily cheating, but you're operating in the gray area. We don't like the way it looks. So since then, we've kind of been looking to see how the Hendrick cars would respond. And this was really the first speed track they've been to where we would get an indication that did it take a lot away from them. And after watching Michigan, I think they're okay.
Yeah, I think they're okay now. I think the first handful of races after Nashville, they seemed to be a little bit out of whack in the sense that they were running good, but they were not, none of them were leading the laps that they were leading up until that point. But clearly, after this past Sunday, they're, you know, from even, I mean, Alex Bowman finished, I think, 15th or 16th, but for a good share of the race, they had all four cars in the top 10. And so, you know, I would agree with you. I think whatever was lost or needed to be adjusted, I think that they're pretty much back in good shape. They certainly showed that way. And if it were not for a humongous push from Kyle Busch, Ryan Blaney, you know, the thing I was talking to my friend Chris Knight as we were driving home from that race, all race long, everybody fought like anything to get on the top lane. And a guy at the bottom won the race. I mean, but he would not have done that without the help of Kyle Busch. And if it were not for Kyle Busch, I think it would have been a duel of Hendrick drivers down to the checkered flag.
Yeah. You see the same thing, Bruce?
Yeah, because most of that race, Hendrick cars were out front. And when you talk about the gray area and how much NASCAR doesn't like venturing into the gray area, that's why teams pay engineers so much money and give them so many engineering tools so that they not only can define the gray area, but actually operate within it and find the advantage. Because as we know, there's not a lot of difference that you can get with some of these cup cars like you used to be able to do, because the box has just gotten to be so constricted. So the gray area and how you react to that is very important when it comes to engineering. Getting back to your point about Hendrick Motorsports at Michigan, I thought it was a really good race. There were a lot of people who went into it questioning the high downforce, 550 horsepower package, whether that had just kind of gone too far away from what a track like Michigan was about. Well, let's face it, there's been a lot of Michigan races we've been to where you could have set the snooze button and still not missed anything. Yeah. This week it was,
and there's been a lot of revisionist history on social media about the glory days too.
But this was a race that was pretty compelling, even when the Hendrick cars were out front.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. A lot of people have said that they felt like this was one of the better Michigan races, and certainly, Jim, we talk about it over the years. It's, you want to, it's how it finishes. Leave them wanting more, and the last 20 laps of that race were riveting. I mean, no doubt about it. And I think before that there was some decent racing too.
I mean, I think it was pretty interesting, like Bruce said, from pretty much start to finish. Even when you had a guy who led 70 of the 200 laps, but it never looked like Kyle Larson was going to run away with it. Which earlier in the season, there were several races that you could not have said that, when it looked like Kyle Larson had run away with it and did. I thought it was a very wide open race. And, if someone's not a fan of the 550 horsepower package or whatever, that's their choice. But to me, that doesn't really have anything to do about whether or not you watched a race and were entertained by it. And I don't see anyone who could have watched the end of that race unless they just absolutely hated the package and dismissed it from the beginning, who didn't think that was a riveting race with an absolutely uncertain outcome. As I mentioned before, the whole goal of the race was people thinking they were going to win from the top lane. And that was the whole reason that NASCAR adopted the choose rule, because drivers wanted to have that option. And then the guy who chose the bottom, because 3 others or 4 others took the top, won the race.
And for Ryan Blaney, second win of the year, also won at Atlanta earlier this year when he chased down Kyle Larson late in the race. And I think this is a big win for Ryan Blaney. I mean, he's a guy that a lot of people feel like can be a budding superstar in this sport, but he needs to win more.
I think he definitely can be a superstar in this sport. You're right, he does need to win more. But Ryan Blaney kind of connects to 2 different types of race fans because of his family background. There's some of the old timers that like to root for him because he's a Blaney, but he really connects great with younger fans. And I think that a lot of them look to him as kind of the guy they would really like to follow to get interested in NASCAR. So if a Ryan Blaney does become a superstar, I think that really benefits the entire series.
I totally agree. And I think that's the one missing ingredient that Ryan has had since he moved full-time into the Cup Series, was not winning on a regular basis or being in the hunt for a win on a regular basis. I mean, he's got 2 wins. This is his first season of more than 1 win. But I also think that the win that he got earlier in the season I think it got dismissed a little bit more than it should have been, because we have not seen many people this season run down Kyle Larson to win the race. And the fact that he was able to do that early on was probably a pretty good sign that they had something good there. And then, of course, there's the story of his crew chief hanging it up as a crew chief at the end of the year. They have a lot to race for. Ryan has a lot to race for. He's now in a much better position entering the playoffs with the second win. And, they have every reason to throw it to the wind on Saturday night and go for a third win, and as do his 2 teammates, but because they've been good on super speedways too. But I really think that, if Ryan becomes a regular, sort of couple win at least a couple win driver every year and going to the playoffs, I think his I mean, I already think he's a fan favorite, but I think it'll just explode even more.
Think of how
Not to mention he's a Star Wars fan. That's big,
Yeah.
That's,
Okay, you and Doug Rice. That takes care of all that. And then he's superstar. There you go. That's all it takes.
Think about how the dynamic changes at Team Penske now, how that team kind of gets younger now that Brad goes over to Roush Fenway, that your senior driver is now Joey Logano, who seemed to be forever the kid, and now you've got...
But just cracking 30, right?
Yes, yes, he's still a kid, but he's been racing
forever.
Forever. Ryan Blaney, who is a kid, connects to the younger crowd, and now the new guy, Austin Cindric.
Another Star Wars fan.
So
there you go.
So in a way,
is Roger Penske a Star Wars fan? Have we checked with the captain?
Bruce could check for us.
Yeah, I could, but I think that he's on a different. He switched
more
to a
pressing matters.
Yeah, he switched to a different universe at the moment.
You can see the captain walk around Indy with a lightsaber.
That's an idea. They ought to look into that. But just think of how the dynamic of that team will be different next year. It'll almost be a younger team.
That's a good point, because you don't really think about it at first, because really Brad's not all that old. He's like, 36, I think, maybe. But the difference between Brad and the next guy, which is Joey, who we've all, I always call Joey the oldest young gun in NASCAR. It's like he seems like he's been racing forever, but he's just around 30.
Well, he started when he was 12.
Yeah, exactly.
But it really does. It really does all of a sudden make Team Penske look like almost not far off from Team Hendrick as far as a young stable of drivers.
Well, and they made an interesting move last week, swapping spotters. Now, usually, you get the feeling that the spotter is the driver's choice. But this last week before Michigan, Coleman Presley moved from Keselowski to Logano as his spotter, and TJ Majors moved to Keselowski from Logano. And Logano said that this is one of those things that Penske didn't want to lose Coleman Presley. And he and Coleman Logano and Presley are best friends.
Right.
And he felt like this was that they'd be on the same page. It would work great. And they wanted to take care of this before the playoffs started. And because I guess they felt like Keselowski was going to take whoever he wanted with him
right
to Roush. So this was an interesting move during the course of the season before the playoffs.
It is. And the odd thing about it is Brad and TJ Majors have been best of friends, but even before they Coleman became a spotter, and Coleman and Joey have been best of friends. So it was like, it's actually surprising. Why didn't this actually happen before? Because it seems like a natural fit now. It makes you wonder why it didn't happen before. But I think it, like what you've kind of insinuated, I think it has more to do with going forward. And clearly there are people that are very familiar to both of them. I'm not sure it will really make much difference as far as the quality of what they get on the racetrack.
Now, this week will be a great test.
Yeah, definitely, especially where there's 15 different things going on at once, and the spotter has to relay it all in a calm manner to the driver, because the driver's right there in the middle of the hurricane, and you got to keep him cool and calm, and the spotter's got to give him as much information in a detailed way without getting his blood pressure up.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting to see. And like you said, best friends, I think Logano had alluded on Sirius this week somewhat to the fact that, when Coleman first started spotting, Joey wasn't sure how he would be as a spotter and didn't want to risk the friendship.
Right. But you can see that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So,
because sometimes even, you might be best of friends, but there still could be some acrimonious moments between spotter and driver.
Yeah. But now that he's got the experience, and now that he feels like he's paid his dues, so to speak.
You're going to say something to your best friend that you normally wouldn't say to anybody else in a moment of anger.
Yeah. But you got to be able to,
right.
He's comfortable that he's very good at his job, and now they know that they know that they can get along as spotter and driver. So,
And the same thing may well be, the same dynamic may well be true between Brad and TJ. I think each was the other's best man in their respective weddings.
yeah.
You know,
So interesting. But you don't think about that dynamic. We always talk about the driver crew chief dynamic, but you don't think about the driver spotter dynamic.
No.
But there you go.
It's a small, small world we live in.
Yes, it is. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about a driver who is re-upped with his current team for next year. And NASCAR's gotten into the entertainment industry one more time, and I'm going to reserve judgment about this one. Stay with us.
O'Reilly Auto Parts is here to keep your car on the road with the right parts, advice from our parts professionals, and our free loaner tool program. Your local store has more than 80 specialty tools available for your next repair. Refundable deposit required. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts and ask about our free loaner tool program or visit O'ReillyAuto.com.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Hey folks, it's Doug Rice. Did you know you can take PRN with you anywhere? By downloading the PRN mobile app, you can listen to our live races just about any place on the planet, and you will not miss a second of the action. Plus, you can hear our shows like the fantastic editions of Fast Talk, plus Brett McMillan on the Pit Reporters and Mark Garrow with Garage Pass. Get all the latest racing information right at your fingertips. The PRN mobile app, available at the Apple App Store and on Google Play.
More of the O'Reilly Auto Parts Pit Reporters in a moment. This is PRN, the Performance Racing Network.
Hi, it's PRN's Brad Gilley. Did you know you could take PRN with you anywhere? That's right. By downloading the PRN mobile app, you can listen to our live race broadcast from anywhere. Make sure you don't miss a second of the action from the track. Download today for station listings and on-demand access to your favorite studio shows like Fast Talk, The Pit Reporters, or Garage Pass. Get all the latest racing information at your fingertips with the PRN mobile app. Download today, available in the Apple App Store and on Google Play.
For the latest NASCAR news without a restrictor plate, it's PRN's Garage Pass.
There's definitely been a few that have slipped away, but at the same point, we do have the most wins now in the series, which is great.
Right now, it appears that there's cars that are, at least a couple tenths faster than everyone else. It's not by accident. These four didn't all just learn how to be the best drivers in the sport, although they deserve their due credit.
I'm Mark Garrow for the station near you. Check us out at GoPRN.com.
Check out all of our show pages on GoPRN.com to find archive shows and more. Now, back to the O'Reilly Auto Parts Pit Reporters with Brett McMillan.
Hey, welcome back along with Bruce Martin from Speed Sport, Jim Utter from Motorsport.com. Brett McMillan, glad to have you with us. All right, let's talk first, Bruce, about Eric Jones has announced that he will be back with Richard Petty Motorsports next year. We're going to get to Jim in a second. I'll say. What do you think about that?
I'm not going to steal Jim's thunder on this one because I know he's warmed up for a good liner coming out of the break. Eric Jones, hey, he's a multiple NASCAR race winner, a solid enough driver. That's what that team needs at the moment. It's never going to be back to what it was in the glory days of the King, but it's still a viable operation, and Jones has won a couple of races in his career, so seems to be a good idea to me.
Were there other options out there for him, Jim?
Oh, were there other options out there for him? I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I mean, there's some potential openings still out there. An expanded 2311 program, some uncertainty, but I think that's probably the best ride that was available. And
not to mention,
well, I mean, and nothing against Eric Jones. It's the funny thing that's going on. It's been happening a lot lately. Is that when that first came out Sunday morning, I was at the track. I'm like, what do you? I saw this thing that said Eric Jones had re-signed with RPM, and I just thought I wrote a story this like a year ago that he had signed a multi-year contract, and I looked it up, and I even found the original press release. Even found the original story on NASCAR.com, all of which said he had signed a multi-year deal with Richard Petty Motorsports when he agreed to go there a year ago. So I was like, why are they? I don't get this. And but the thing, what happens is nowadays, which is much different than it used to be, a lot of driver contracts are not really multi-year deals. A lot of them have options. They're a year deal with options. But what was it? And that was the case in Eric's situation. But in my opinion, if you have a multi-year deal where the team can dismiss you at the end of each season on its own, then you don't really have a multi-year deal to drive. You have like a deal if everybody agrees.
An agreement in principle.
Yeah, but I think that's probably a much more accurate term. Yes. So in this case, they both agreed that they wanted Eric, Eric wanted to stay. It's probably his best option right now. And I think they've shown some improvement. And also with the new car coming, they could be on a more level playing field with everybody else next year. So I think it was the best move for Eric. I think he's in a good place. I just was a little snarky this weekend over people always claiming to have multi-year deals, and then you find out they're re-signing for next year.
Yeah, I can't believe this guy's ever been snarky.
No, never. We used to have contracts like that in local TV. It was a 3-year contract for us, but for the station, it was a series of 1-year contracts.
Whatever he wants to, right?
Yeah, exactly. All right, the other interesting story I found, and I saw this on Awful Announcing, and according to Deadline, there will be a new romantic comedy called Clean Air, which will produce the film. It's going to be produced with NASCAR. Allison Rose Greenberg, who is a writer on the TV series Younger, is going to write the screenplay. And Bruce, I will read for you a synopsis of what this rom-com, this is a movie, not a TV series, it's a rom-com. The film follows Lila, an ambitious sports agent who loses her superstar client before the start of the NASCAR season and decides to take a chance on a rebellious female dirt track racer, 17-year-old Piper Kite. With her career on the line, Lila's challenge, getting Piper NASCAR ready, is only one if she can also reform Piper's reclusive father, Matthew Kite, a former NASCAR champion who infamously walked away from the sport and hasn't been seen in 4 years.
So Piper's father went off to go fly a kite, is what you're telling me.
Rim shot. There you go.
Hey, I haven't seen much of it, but my understanding was the TV show Younger was considered to be a good show. It had some A-list names involved in it. I think it was on TV Land or something, one of those channels. But, anything that you can push out into the mainstream that pushes the racing or the NASCAR agenda, it's worth a try. Now,
even if it's not, no, I shouldn't say even if it's not good, but
well,
that's, you haven't even watched.
I'm not in the target demographic, clearly.
Yeah, I don't think either one of us are. I don't think any of the three of us are probably in that target demographic. But I mean, have you seen the target demographic lately? Are involved in the things that is just so far over our comprehension.
I'm trying to figure out where the rom part comes in here.
Romantic
comedy.
Yeah, I don't know.
Unless it's Lila getting involved with Piper's dad.
Maybe Piper has a boyfriend somewhere in the garage area or something.
Who knows? But if
it's NASCAR related, she better turn 18 fast because you can't run in the 3 national series unless you're 18 years old.
Wow.
But when you
quick editor, edit.
When you started reading that premise, lost their star client before the start of the season, I go, wait a minute. Wasn't that called Jerry Maguire?
I was just going to say that. I'm like, is this Jerry Maguire goes to NASCAR?
Yeah.
Well, look, overall, I'm like, you should take these things as they are, Some people are going to like them. Some people are going to hate them. They don't all have to be compared to real life NASCAR. They're not supposed to be. It doesn't advertise itself as a reality show, But sometimes I think our fan base gets all worked up over stuff because that's not how it really is. Well, 99% of what you see in the movies and TV is not what it's supposed to be. Not how it really is.
And you know what? Sometimes putting on Stroker Ace at 1 a.m. is good for a few laughs.
Yeah.
Stroker Ace was
I
a
like
rom-com.
Days of Thunder, and I don't care if it's not realistic.
Yes, right.
You should have seen Stroker Ace.
I mean, same thing, though,
my
right?
favorite scene. My favorite scene of Stroker
You
of
can
Days of Thunder is
enjoy
the
a
opening
movie
scene.
without it having to be like, exact replica of real life.
I like the opening scene of Days of Thunder that shows an old beaten down barn and it says Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yeah.
Hey, but I want you to know the barn where Harry Hogue built the car for the Daytona 500 is exactly 1.5 miles from my house in Mooresville.
He reminds me of that all the time.
Oh, good.
Still can see it.
No, still,
Yes, you can
are
still
you
see
giving?
it.
Are you giving movie? Are you giving like Houses of the Stars tours?
That might be a good thing to do during the off season.
There you go.
It might be a good revenue generator.
That might work. All right, we'll reserve judgment until we see. We don't know when Clean Air is coming out. Apparently, they haven't even started.
Nice title, though.
I know.
Clean Air.
It's a dirt track racer, and they use the term
Clean
air.
Yeah, but it fits with NASCAR's Green Initiative.
Oh, that's true.
There you go.
Except
See?
that's written on a piece of paper.
Well, that was my fault.
There's one in every crowd.
That's right. All right, when we come back, we'll talk about this week's regular season finale. Stay with us.
Do you use the expensive blue or yellow pills to charge your sex life? Are you thinking about it? What if we can promise you the same results for less than $3 a pill? If you're paying $20 a pill for the other pills, you're getting taken to the cleaners. Our pills deliver the exact same results for less than $3. You'll save more than $16 a pill for the same results. And right now, radio callers will get 44 blue or yellow pills for $120 with free discreet shipping. You can save more than $700 off pharmacy prices. Charge your sex life now and save a ton of money. Call now and get your 44 pills and save over $700 and qualify for free shipping. Stop overpaying and call right now.
800-605-1682. 800-605-1682. 800-605-1682. That's 800-605-1682.
There's more of the O'Reilly Auto Parts Pit Reporters still to come. This is PRN, the Performance Racing Network.
It's time to get down and dirty. The Food City Dirt Race is underway as the green flag flies.
He goes to the middle of the racetrack. That opens the bottom up for Larson. Here comes Kyle Larson off turn 4.
Elliott gets to the inside. Bowman washes up, and Chase Elliott will go to the point in turn 6.
The two Kyles battling for the lead. Larson cuts up in front of Kyle Busch. Busch battles back to the inside.
A fight to the outside for Austin Cindric. Door to door with Kyle Busch. Move Austin Cindric to the top spot. They touch doors again. They are too wide down to the 10.
All the way to the top goes Christopher Bell, trying to get against the cushion. He'll spin off the corner and collect Kyle Larson.
Blaney will tuck right in behind the leader. He'll look for his opportunity down in 3 and 4. Here goes Blaney. He'll go up to the Larson lane to try to catch Larson.
When the NASCAR Cup Series races at Atlanta, Bristol, Charlotte, New Hampshire, Sonoma, Las Vegas, and Texas. You hear it here on PRN, the Performance Racing Network. Check us out on YouTube at GoPRN Live. Now, more of the O'Reilly Auto Parts Pit Reporters with Brett McMillan.
Bruce and I have been running down the cast of Stroker Ace.
It
Ned
was a
Beatty.
high-profile
Ned Beatty.
cast.
It was.
Bubba Smith.
Burt Reynolds, Lonnie Anderson. That's what Burt Reynolds and Lonnie Anderson met. What was that, Harold? Jim Neighbors was in there.
That's right. Jim Neighbors.
Jim Neighbors.
Oh,
yeah. He was the crew chief.
He was the crew chief.
Wow.
Yeah, he was Burt Reynolds' crew chief. And Burt drove in a chicken suit. Yes, he did. Actually, about a year ago, I was flipping around and happened to run across the movie. And there was a scene with Dale Earnhardt, Kyle Petty, and
Neil Bonnet.
I don't think Bonnet was in this scene, but one of the actors, Kerry Yules or whatever his name was, and they were racing. I think it took place at the old Adams Mark in downtown Charlotte, and they were racing service carts.
Oh,
down the hall.
The old Adams Mark Hotel.
Yeah, the old Adams Mark Hotel. They were racing service carts down the road.
The
down
Adams
the
Mark
aisles.
is where the NMPA convention was all the time.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes, it was where.
See, that was before my time.
Yes, it was.
Humpy Wheeler in the early 80s used to have a series of Wednesday afternoon press luncheons. And just to announce nothing, really, but just to let people know that at that time, the National 500 was going to be held
the Coke
in October,
600, the 600,
which would
World
later
600.
become the Miller High Life 500. And it was just a way to get the local media together, open bar, serve lunch, and it was
if
always
somebody showed up for that, you were in big trouble.
It was always at the Adams Mark.
Yep. Well,
it was always at the Adams.
Yeah, they had a pretty good stack of drivers in there. Yeah. So there you go. I wonder if Kyle Petty still gets residuals for that every time it runs. We'll have to call him and ask. We know Kent
You
Bernhardt.
can tweet him. He answers questions every day.
Yeah, we know Kent Bernhardt still gets what's he got, a $2 check about every month or so from Stroke? $4 check.
$4 check.
$4 check every month for appearing because his voice is in Days of Thunder.
Nice.
No, Talladega Nights. His voice is in Talladega Nights. He still gets a $4 check every month.
Former Charlotte Motor Speedway PA announcer Bill Cannell is a crew member in Last American Hero.
Oh, really?
He is an actual actor in the movie with Beau Bridges.
There you go. Wow. Still gets Kent Bernhardt. Still
Wait
gets
a minute.
$4.
Sorry, I got my Bridges mixed up. It was Jeff Bridges.
Jeff Bridges.
Beau was the older brother.
As long as it wasn't the bridge over the River Kwai.
I know.
I was worried where he was going when he said,
All right,
I got my Bridges wrong.
Let's get back on track here.
I know how NASCAR fans treat Jim Utter, so I don't want to make any mistakes.
Okay.
on today's show.
All right. Daytona this week. We talked earlier about hey, what happens? We know what happens if somebody kind of comes out of the pack and wins this thing and knocks Tyler Reddick and Austin Dillon out of the playoffs. What do you think? Are the chances pretty good that happens, Jim, or is it going to be usual suspects?
My prediction, I think that the bigger, kind of I alluded to earlier, I think that the last person's going to get in on points and in that case, obviously, Tyler Reddick has a slight edge, and I think there's going to be a repeat winner, but I do think that I have a tough call on whether Denny Hamlin or Kyle Larson wins the regular season, but because I can just see something happening where one or the other one gets collected in something, and I think that my prediction is that will be the more dramatic race, quote unquote, that comes out of Saturday night, which one of them ends up being the regular season champion.
Bruce, what are you thinking?
I think that the big one chooses no favorites who gets involved in it, and that's going to be the big thing that is going to be either help a guy get in or it's going to be the crushing into his chance at the playoffs. Because as we've seen, how many of the best cars in the race just minding their own business and they get swallowed up in the big one. And then that's pretty much game over at that point. I can't. There's a very good chance that a random car could win, but I'm going to go ahead and think that it's probably going to be a repeat winner too.
All right, it's going to be interesting to see. It's going to be interesting to
How
see.
about you, Mr. McMillan?
I think it's going to be the usual suspects. That tends to be what happens at the end of these races. I mean, McDowell.
And
like
generally, those are the people who play it safer
during the race.
They're the people who should play it.
Who should.
Yeah, but make a big move at the end. So I think it will be one of the usual suspects. I mean, McDowell, as we talked about earlier, is a good driver. He's very successful at Daytona. He just hadn't won, and he was in the right position to win. And it wasn't a fluke he was in that position.
No.
It was just a bit of a fluke
The more
that he
unexpected part was that he was able to complete the deal.
Well, and another part of that is that he's still in the top 20 in points, which nobody thought that they could do that all year long. All right, when we come back, white flag laps.
O'Reilly. Ready for an oil change? Visit the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts to get everything you need. Right now, get 5 quarts of Mobil 1 full synthetic motor oil for just $28.95 and earn double O rewards points with your purchase. Protect your engine against sludge and wear with Mobil 1 full synthetic motor oil. On sale now at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
We want to help extend the life of your vehicle. Add Z-Max Micro Lubricant to the fuel and oil where it uses the fluids to reach internal parts. As it soaks into metal, Z-Max disperses harmful carbon buildup to help improve performance, reduce emissions, extend engine life, and increase fuel mileage. Buy Z-Max today at zmax.com or your local auto parts store. Help your vehicle run better with Z-Max Micro Lubricant.
Today's broadcast is brought to you by Blue Emu Maximum Pain Relief, the official pain relief cream of the Performance Racing Network.
Want to hear one of our past shows? Visit GoPRN.com. This is PRN, the Performance Racing Network.
Hey, this is Doug Rice of the Performance Racing Network. Join us on Mondays at 7 o'clock for Fast Talk.
Kyle Larson as an individual in the number 5 team are just on another planet. It's incredible what they're doing.
If you were in Nashville, you knew NASCAR was there. If you were following NASCAR, you knew Nashville was there.
I think all that combination, Doug, has really allowed Chevrolet as a whole to step up.
That's Fast Talk right here on PRN.
Hi, this is PRN's Brett McMillan. You don't spend your life just sitting around, so what you need is PRN's mobile app. By downloading the mobile app, you can listen to our live race broadcast from anywhere. Make sure you don't miss a second of the action from the track. If you download it today, you get station listening and on-demand access to your favorite studio shows like Fast Talk, Pit Reporters, or Garage Pass. Get all the latest racing information at your fingertips with the PRN mobile app. Download today. Available at the Apple App Store and on Google Play.
Follow at PRN Live on Twitter for show news and information. Now more of the O'Reilly Auto Parts Pit Reporters with Brett McMillan.
All right, time now for our white flag laps. And first up from motorsport.com, it's Jim Utter.
I just wanted to point out that this Sunday we had a moment late in the, I think it was pretty much late in the race, where there was just a whiff of a brief shower that came over turn 1. And I don't think it took 10 drops for it to hit the track before NASCAR threw a caution and brought everybody down and waited the time. It passed, and we got back racing. Have no problem with that whatsoever. My only problem is, where was that instant reflex of reaction to the multitude of times earlier this season when that reaction and subsequent caution may have saved several people from being wrecked at places like, I don't know, New Hampshire, Austin, Texas. So my point being is, we need, and I know this has been heard 1,000 times, we could use a little more consistency from the NASCAR officiating booth as we go into the playoffs, especially. No problem falling on the conservative side, but just pick a side.
I hear you. I think your keyword was reaction.
Yeah.
Next up, from Speed Sport, Bruce Martin.
2 weeks ago when we were at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, one of the most heartfelt moments was the fact that Robin Miller was there. He had been inducted in the Motorsports Hall of Fame that Friday, and he mustered up all the energy he could to get out there. And Robin Miller is a man who doesn't cry. Well, he cried that day, and he wrapped up his speech by saying he could, if he died tonight, he's had a great life. On Sunday at the race, Dave First, his longtime friend, Vice President of Communications now at IndyCar, and also his longtime friend, Steve Shunk, arranged for Robin to have a golf cart. And down there at the bottom of the stage at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, he got to talk to all the NASCAR drivers. He got to visit with Jeff Gordon, got to visit with A.J. Allmendinger before he won the race. Got to talk to Kyle Larson. It was a huge weekend for Robin Miller. That weekend really took it out of him, and he ended up back in the hospital this past weekend, and he knows that his days are numbered, but Robin Miller means as much to the history of auto racing and to the history of IndyCar racing of any journalist that I can think of, for as long as he's been doing it and the level that he's done it at. And I think we should all wish Robin Miller a get well soon, even though it's a battle that he knows is going to be very tough to win.
Yep, absolutely. Highly respected, no doubt about that. Well, just real quickly, I think we see coming up this weekend exactly what we'd hoped for when this playoff format came. We got a race at the top of the standings. We got a race at the bottom of the playoff standings. And the uncertainty of Daytona. Enjoy it, because we're going to do it 4 more times before the end of the season. Jim, Bruce, thanks a lot. Talk to you next week.
The O'Reilly Auto Parts Pit Reporters was presented by O'Reilly Auto Parts, your professional parts people. This is PRN, the Performance Racing Network.